And we're back at it again. Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about the fearful avoidant, also known as the disorganized attachment style. Now, when I have in previous videos prefaced the different types of attachment styles and the emotions, feelings, events that are associated with them that create these attachment styles, the fearful avoidant or the disorganized attachment style is very specific when it comes to what happened that could cause this attachment style. And so the disorganized attachment style is a combination of the anxious and avoidant attachment styles and types that we happened to go over. And this is the same attachment style that is responsible for that back and forth I was sharing with you guys. And so with the disorganized attachment style, they want love, right? I'm pining for love. And let's say I'm in the talking stages of dating. But as soon as I get that intimacy, and this is where that disavoidant kicks in, is I pull back because I don't feel worthy of that intimacy. I don't feel that self-worth that tells me that I'm good enough for this person. And so we spin around on this amusement park ride, and we don't know where we're going, and it just feels like we're going in circles. And this can be really traumatic to people who want to get out of this cycle. So what I want to describe to you today is how it's formed in childhood, because it is a little different than the other ones that I shared. And I also wanted to just mention, I would want to correct myself that not all insecure attachment styles are the result of rejection. Sometimes they can be composed of many factors, as you will see with this attachment style. Now, according to Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a psychologist, interactions in our early childhood that form with this attachment style can be developed by fear, through the presence of observing fear, whether it's through a parent or yourself, or any form of physical, sexual, emotional abuse that has been inflicted upon you at a young age. And it can also be the result of mirror neurons, such as if we're little and we see something that terrorizes our parent, right? Maybe our parent's watching a horror movie and our mom's just sitting there and she's petrified and she's like covering her eyes. Because of our emotional transparency as humans to have mirror neurons, which is looking at something and mirroring somebody else and almost feeling that. As a child, let's remember that we don't have enough functioning within certain parts of the brain to determine what's fantasy and what is actually reality. And a fun fact about that is our brains cannot determine if an event is actually happening or if we're imagining it. This is why if you were to imagine skydiving right now, if you're a little afraid of heights, you might be weary of skydiving, jumping out of a plane. So if you picture it, you'll notice that your sweat will start to accumulate, that your heart rate will go up, that your pupils will dilate, because these are all fight or flight responses and adrenaline based to the emotions that you've been given. So at this stage, a child with this attachment style may freeze up in response to what they're dealing with. They just freeze. You find this a lot in survivors of sexual abuse, and this is one of the sickening things to me, right, is people that prey upon people who have survived sexual abuse events. There's just something, there's a vibration, there's something though, it's almost like you're carrying this spirit of victimization because you had your innocence stolen or something happened to you. And I discuss this because with sexual abuse, a lot of us freeze up. I've talked to many women that have gone through this, and they just freeze up. They feel helpless. They don't know what to do. They don't think to defend themselves. They just freeze up because it's such a traumatic, shocking event that the very first thing that you think of isn't like, probably is, the thing that you would think of is, I need to get out of here, or I need to fight. Especially with repeated events. This is what predators end up looking for how people react to, like, when you touch them. Do they jump? Do they let you touch them? Do they not have boundaries? And it's really sad and devastating. But I'm mentioning this because that freeze response, we find that in sexual abuse. And so a lot of, I don't want to say this attachment style in particular, but there is parts of this attachment style that have been sexually abused. And it makes a lot more sense when you understand that that is one of the flight responses to the body. The other example is they might be agitated as a child. So if you are going through something or you see something and you don't like what you see, maybe you're acting out, right? Maybe you're getting violent. Maybe you're hitting, throwing, kicking, biting, screaming to get your way. And so let's ask ourselves, how does this display itself as we grow older into our daily routine? Number one that I had previously mentioned is this attachment style doesn't have a sense of self-worth. And the narrative, and what the narrative is a inner critic inside our brain, a voice that talks to us, and it pushes what we think to be as reality. So it's what we as humans perceive to be as reality, whether it's true or not in this case. And so they have a sense of low self-worth, and they have this negative narrative always playing in their mind, kind of like a feedback loop that tells me I'm not good enough for this person, I can't do this, I won't be successful. All these things that are negative affirmations that we shouldn't be saying to ourselves, because remember that words have power. This is incredibly toxic and negative, not only to our body, soul, and spirit, but to those around us, because it's what we are vibrating around others too. This is very low vibrational energy. Number two is that they have a strong tendency to interact in what I call the push-pull technique. You'll find this in dating manuals, dating books, dating advice. Basically, the push-pull within dating is not the same as the push-pull here in attachment. The push-pull in dating is, I'm giving you a compliment and I'm making you excited about something, and then I leave on like a high note, and then I don't reply and I pull back. People call it playing games, but that's also called the push-pull technique. But with the attachment style push-pull technique, this is to the nth degree. This is the most extreme possible degree you could imagine, right? And this is what I was talking about. Let's say I get in a relationship. Let's say I push myself to get into a relationship for the very first time with this attachment style, and as soon as I get that love and it seems like overbearing and I feel crushed, because that's where the disavoidant kicks in, but I'm also anxious because I want this, they pull away, and it's almost like borderline manipulation. That's what we perceive it as when we don't understand that this attachment style in particular will do that, whether they know it or not. And this is really just to keep intimacy at bay, even though it's secretly the one thing that they crave. Number three is that they have abnormal amounts of fear, excessive amounts of fear, things that you couldn't even begin to comprehend about relationships, and so they would rather not deal with it. But they might fantasize, if they're by themselves, they might fantasize about the perfect man or the perfect girl and what it could be, and what it would look like when they went on dates, and what kind of activities they would do together. And again, it's playing into that anxious attachment style and the disavoidant, because it's this unrealistic perspective of something that isn't to be actual reality that's given. Number four is that they're impulsive and erratic in relationships. And what I mean by that is you never know what you're going to get, just like Forrest Gump. This attachment style is called the spice of life attachment style, because they will literally do the most insane, crazy things when you least expect it, just to throw some spice in the relationship. How about that one? So if you like to be woken up in the middle of the night and screamed at, this could be the attachment style for you. The issue with this impulsive decision that they make with these erratic behaviors and things is that they also do fault finding in relationships. And so fault finding is responsible for if you're in a relationship and you start making up these scenarios in your brain, right, that are anxiety driven, in particular, infidelity is a big one for this attachment style to find in their dating partners and their flaws. And so they'll think like they'll check their partner's phone, or they'll become obsessively jealous all of a sudden. They make up these scenarios like, he hasn't responded in 30 minutes. He must be out with some girl. He's not at business lunch, you know. The most crazy, obscure ideas you could possibly begin to think of. Unfortunately, this is something that this attachment style can do and is responsible for at times. Number 5 is that they have a general discomfort when dealing with any sort of emotions. And this is basically just because they have such a hard time receiving love that they don't want to express vulnerability. And I also think that partially it's because they don't know what love actually is. Number 6 is that when affection was given in the childhood homes of the secure attachment style, and maybe some of the insecure attachment styles, they might have some affection that was given even though it was inconsistent, but this attachment style, it's scared to accept affection. They're scared to accept affection, and they have a hard time receiving compliments because to them, especially being survivors of abuse, which a large proponent of this attachment style is, based on what we know from psychological studies, they have no idea what they're, like I said, what they're going to get. They have no idea what's in store for them. So you might be meaning the most great things for them. Maybe you planned like this wonderful meal and you worked really hard on it, but they're coming home from a stressful day and they just come home with this out-of-pocket energy, right? You're not expecting it. That's going to give them a flashback, especially if they grew up in a broken home or with abuse as a kid. That is going to remind them, how do I know that I'm not about to be abused? And what it does is it triggers that response. Whether it's abuse or not, that they're scared of affection because the affection wasn't given in the home, abuse was given in the home. And so the final one is that you also might feel like you want to be seen or heard by others, but you never feel like you fully fit in anywhere. You could be in a camp setting, you could be in a group, you could be at a social function, and it just feels like you're always the odd duck, and you just can't figure out why. And it's not always the case that's why, you know. I'm not going to say this is a prominent determining factor if you have this attachment style. But what I will say is it's definitely something to look into, and if any of the things that I named today resonate with you, I'd encourage you to look up what this attachment style can do. I will be pushing out a video next week on how to deal with the disorganized attachment style and how to deal with partners who have disorganized attachment style. And so as always, make sure you hit the notification bell, click subscribe, leave a comment if you feel like it, and if you feel like anything that I've said's really helped you, guide you in life, or helped you with any questions that you might have. And as always, stay frosty.